I'm sure each and every one of you, each and every gamer has heard this before where somebody in your life has said, video games are a distraction, your time is spent better doing something else. Now, while I do disagree with that partly, I do think that's a valid critique if you truly should be doing something other than playing video games all the time. I think a big misconception is that people think, and when I say people, I'm talking about those who critique people who play video games. I think their biggest thing is that they think video games are being played in order to avoid, in order to create avoidance and for you to just put things off. But what I don't think people understand is that people are already trying to avoid certain things. And that video game is just another, it's more logs on that fire, if that makes sense. So someone who is deficient financially, that type of person, they're running away from their money problems. So they already have things that they're trying to avoid. That session of playing a video game, that just supplements that. It just makes it more potent, so to speak. So they can feel the brunt of that financial deficiency less than they feel that dopamine hit when they play a video game. Another thing people need to realize is that there is a difference between compulsive play and intentional play. I'll use myself as an example. As I mention on this channel all the time, I'm a nursing school student. So intentionally, when I'm taking a break from studying, I'll study for maybe 2 to 3 hours at a time, and then I'll just go sit right over there in my recliner, power up the PS5, and I'll start a game session. I'll play for 30 minutes to an hour, then I'm right back to studying. There's an intention behind that gaming session. I'm not just going over there just because. What most people do is they're playing their games just because, aside from the people who don't have genuine responsibilities, kids, families, whatever. They're playing their game compulsively. I can't stop playing. I want to play GTA. I want to play 2K. I want to play this. I want to play that. But what are you doing outside of playing video games? And I think that's where the debate arises, where people want to consider whether a video game is actually a good outlet or if it's just a distraction, because you may have other things that you should be doing at that time. Now, as I just stated, I play my game when I need a break from school. I think video games are similar to that of television or music for some people. It's a form of mental decompression, just being able to unpack the day, unpack what you're going through, stressors in your life, problems that you have, relationship, family, school, friends, whatever. A video game is able to provide that. So I can see why it's so enticing to a lot of different people. And what's even more interesting is that other mediums also have a similar effect that video games do. They can serve as a distractor. They can serve as something that's taking you off your purpose or your responsibilities. Take things like Netflix, take things like TikTok. People are literally brain dead on TikTok, but there's this unanimous decision that video games is the one source that's terrible. People shouldn't do it. It's the biggest distraction. But what about these other things? Not video games, social media, Netflix, streaming services, all these things as a whole are inherently distractors and things that can take you away from your responsibilities, which is why even in school they teach us guidelines for social media. They teach us things about time management because they know we live in a modern age where we're dominated by modern conveniences and modern technology. We live in a microwave society is what I like to call it. You can get everything instantly. You want some food, just order it on your phone. You want to do this, you can just we have convenience, and that in and of itself is a distraction. I don't see how going a whole day at work, then coming home, sitting in your recliner, sitting on your chair, sitting in your game studio, whatever, and you're powering up the game. I don't see how that's more of a distraction or more severe of a distraction as that opposed to like a Netflix or TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram, because people literally waste hours upon hours on end on these things. When I think of the word distraction, I think of words like lost or led astray, but it's not that we're lost, that we get lost in the game. Is that we're engaged in it. If you're playing God of War, how can you not get engaged in that story, in that acting, in the thematics, in the cinematics, in the graphics, in the immersion of the world? How can you not get lost in how can you not become engaged with that? You want to read the journals and learn about the lore. You want to hear all the character dialogues. You want to know about the weapons. You want to be engage with this game fully. Now, am I saying you can't get lost in it? Of course you can. But when people refer to being lost in a game, substitute lost with engagement, because being lost, that infers that you're talking about distraction. We're not talking about being distracted. We're talking about being engaged in what we're currently experiencing. And I think the biggest issue that arises with this is that it's not the time you're spending playing games, but it's what games replaces that time with. Like, you could be at work, you could be studying, you could be at the gym, you could be trying to I don't know, satisfy your wife who's complaining and talking crap to you, or conversely, your boyfriend's getting on your nerves, whatever. You could be doing something with them, but the fact that the video game is a way to, like, oh, I replace this with this, I think that's where the issue arises. And I don't think that escapism is inherently bad. I think it's a form of survival because, the things that stress you out, the thing that frustrates you, is something that you don't want to be exposed to all the time. But also, as I referred to earlier, if you get lost in games as opposed to being engaged in a game, that's not something that's probably good or productive to your long-term security and success in life. And I think it is because of escapism, it is because of the stressors and frustrations people encounter in life and adversity, that's why there can be an increase and a spike in the amount of overall hours that people put into games. I remember when I first was played Elden Ring, my very first playthrough, I think I was going through a breakup at the time. I was in nursing school for the first time, because this is my second stint in nursing school. I was in it for the first time, so I was stressed trying to navigate, how do I study? How do I do this? And I look back and I look at my PS5 now and I see all the hours I've amassed and put into Elden Ring. I have over 1,000 hours. There's probably people who have way more than that, but that goes to show that's a lot of time that you're putting into something that isn't necessarily feeding your goals and your mission and the things you want to do in life. Another reason why I think a lot of people gravitate towards games as a way of as a source of a therapeutic effect, something that can be therapy for them, is because games can provide them a sense of structure. Your everyday life can be hectic, but when you play a game, you can play for a set amount of time. You can pause it when you need to pause it, when you want to take a break, when you need to run to the bathroom. It provides a sense of structure to you, and that in turn returns a sense of contentment and you being okay with the situation. But that's always not the case when it comes to real life. It's not the games that ruin your life. It's an unstructured individual who ruins their life. Games can be refuge when it comes to grief or burnout or stress or anything that you're going through. That's what a game can be for you. But the disconnect lies in the fact that we live in a society that prioritizes, or more so praises, productivity as opposed to you getting rest or you recouping from things, or you not even recouping. Maybe you didn't even start and you're just sitting on your behind, which I actually don't disagree with. I agree with being productive. And I think that's another reason why there's this debate between, are video games a distraction and are they something that's just an outlet? And truth be told, chiefly the main people who complain about games being a distraction, you'll hear guys talk about it, but I think it's mainly just girls who are just getting on you about it. And one of the most important points I'll make is that there is a difference between using games or a game using you. Are you playing this game as, what did I say before? We were talking about intentional gaming versus compulsive gaming. Are you using this video game as a way to take a break from what's stressing you or to take a break from your responsibilities? Or are you using this game in order to put those things off? If it's the latter, then you probably shouldn't be playing video games to the extent that you are currently playing them. But if it's the former, I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting down and playing your game. I don't think so at all. Something else that I've also noticed is that it's usually competitive games that get labeled as distractions more so than as opposed to single player narrative driven games. Like, no one says, oh, you're distracted because you're playing God of War or you're playing Horizon or you're playing The Last of Us. Those games are masterpieces, and I'm not saying that competitive games can't be impactful and a masterpiece or reflective of a masterpiece, but they really only say that when you're playing like a shooting game, you're playing a Fortnite, you're playing Call of Duty, you're playing something that has an open world that isn't necessarily based on a good story or a story at all. So I just thought that was an interesting, dynamic. Another reason why I'm a big proponent that gaming isn't just a distraction or is something that you shouldn't view as that entirely is that it can get to a point, because, throughout this video, I've been referencing that people go through things, trials and tribulations and problems. It can get to a point that due to these frustrations and due to these things that you are subjected to in your everyday life, gaming, it becomes less of a hobby and more so like a numb habit. Like, oh, I'm just going through the motions. I'm just playing it now. I can't even really enjoy this because my mind is elsewhere and I have other things that I'm actually worrying about. Games don't distract you or steal time. They borrow the time. And that loan is based on your own standards for yourself and your intentions. Games can sharpen your focus, they can sharpen your reaction time, they can sharpen your problem solving. These are all things that you can use in your real life. These all have a correlation to real life, and not just to some degree, to a large extent. We use this all the time. You ever played Senua Saga? That game in and of itself is basically the outward manifestation of critical thinking given form in software development. I also believe that there's a bit of criticism for games as a distraction that stems from the older generation or our elders, people who aren't born along with us. I'm born 2000. So people significantly older than me, or even just moderately older than me, they may view games as a distraction to a more degree than I myself, who was born in this modern age and who grew up with more modern, more advanced means of gaming and technology and entertainment. Whereas with them, when they grew up, they didn't have access to games or cell phones or technology, all these things. So they view it all as distractions and things that you don't need because they went throughout the majority of their lives and they didn't have these things at all. We may view them as just, oh, whatever. They may view it as a potential luxury or things that we should earn to utilize as opposed to things we should just be utilizing by default. And it is probably because of that discrepancy between earning the ability and the time to play a game versus just doing it and having access to these technology and all these things is probably why they're so, annoyed or upset or critical about it. And then as a result of the older generation or your girl annoying you or your family telling you stop wasting time or this happening or that happening, you start to feel a sense of guilt. Maybe I shouldn't play my game today. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I shouldn't do that. When in actuality, all you wanted was just a brief release so you can get back to what you had to do. And then ironically enough, quitting the game doesn't even fix the underlying issue because the game is the release. The game isn't the cause. In my opinion, when done right, video games are not a distraction. They are a destination. I think it's a good thing for people to just remember or adhere to this one belief, and is that games become dangerous when they replace growth, not when they delay it. I'm Harlem. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.